you know, just come today, and some joined this class last week, and idhar aa jaye, oh seat khali hai, and some are here since last year. So for those who are new to this class, Surah Al Imran is the second surah of the Quran, and we are almost on the 100th ayah of Surah Al Imran, and we are in the fourth juz, the fourth para of the Quran. Now I will do the translation. Those of you who have your workbook should have your pens ready, so that you do the translation and you write down the translation. And in the next class you might be asked to do the translation, so you should understand how to do the translation. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu. O you who believe. These three words are those three words which have been repeated in the Quran not dozens of times, hundreds of times. So if you understand the meaning of these three words, that means out of the 8,000 or 9,000 words of the Quran, you've struck down about 300 to 400 words, right? Ya ayyuhallazina amanu. O you who believe. Amanu means believe. Allazina, those. Ya means oh, right? Ya is when you call out, right? In English you say oh, but in Urdu also you say oh, right? But in Urdu sometimes you say oe. So whatever it is, Ya means, Ya is like when you are calling out people. Ya ayyu, oh those of you who believe. In tuti'u fariqam minal lazina utul kitab. If you follow any, fariq means, fariq is a word used in Urdu, fariq means group. If you follow any group, minal lazina utul kitab, from the people of the group, from the people of the book. And who are the people of the book, by the way? People of the book, generally when they refer to people of the book, it is the Jews and the Christians, right? So Allah Ta'ala is saying, oh you believe, if you follow any of the groups of the people of the book, yaruddukum, they will send you back. Ba'da imanikum kafirin, they will send you back after you've accepted Islam, back to kufr, back to disbelief, right? So if you follow them, and if you listen to each and every word that they say, and you try to follow whatever they tell them, then they will put you back where? They will put you back to disbelief, from where you came. After believing also, they will put you back to disbelief. Now, there are many, this is the ayah of the Quran. And generally the explanation of the ayah lies in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. And there are some explanations of this ayah. And one of the explanations of this ayah lies in this hadith. The Prophet ﷺ said, and this is a very, very powerful hadith. The Prophet ﷺ said that you are on the deen of your friend. Al-mar'u ala dini khalilihi. This is what the Prophet ﷺ said. That a man is on the deen of his friend. Whoever his friend is, his deen and his friend's deen is going to be almost the same. And then the Prophet ﷺ said, so you should be careful who you make friends with. So that means each one of us is affected by the environment that he is in. If he has good friends, he'll become a good person. And if he has bad friends, then he'll become a bad person. This is how it is. And sometimes some people are strong, even if they are in bad company, they still do not accept all these bad traits, but little bit of effect still enters into their hearts. That is why the Prophet ﷺ said, "Alaykum bi majalisil ulama'i was salihin." It is an obligation upon you. It is obligatory for you to spend time with scholars and pious people. So bad company makes you a bad person. Good company makes you a good person. Now the environment that we're living in, we cannot escape bad company, right? Because this is how it is. So if you are in bad company for most of the day, then there should be some good company that you should have in some part of the day. And if not, in every day, at least once a week, you should go in the company of pious people or scholars who tell you what is right and what you should be on. Even that small amount of good company can help you, right? So the poet says, and it is very beautiful poetry. He said, "Jahan itr khichta hai jao wahan gar, to aoge ek roz kapde basakar." This is about good company. That if you go to those places where there is perfumes, then one day you will have good smelling clothes when you go to these stores where they sell perfumes, right? So this is how good company is. If you go in their company, then at some point or the other you will also accept the goodness that lies in their company. And then the poet says, "Jahan aag jalti hai jao wahan gar, to aoge ek roz kapde jalakar." And if you go to those places where there is fire, and even if you try to save yourself, you go there again and again, at some point your clothes are going to burn as well. So if you go to those places where fire is burning, then you will also burn. So this is what good company is. You go to good company, you will become good. You go to bad company, you will become, at some point, you will also become a bad person. And all of us can experience, all of us can find examples that yes, such and such friend of mine, he was in good company, he was a good person. When he went into bad company, he became a bad person. And this is how it is. But still, the scholars have given a few benefits of good company. And there are 4 benefits of good company, and we've listed these 4 benefits here. And those who have workbooks should write them down. Maybe you will be asked about these 4 benefits in the next class. The first and one of the very important benefits of being in the good company is that if you are in good company, in the company of pious people, in the company who are elevated in the eyes of Allah, then your status is also elevated in the eyes of Allah. How is that? All scholars, there are many things that many different scholars disagree about. That there's agreement about one thing among all scholars of all ages of Islam, of all countries of Islam. And that one thing is that after the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the companions, the Sahaba of the Messenger, they are the most elevated in rank in the eyes of Allah. So no matter how much good deeds I do today, no matter how many good deeds you do today, the rank of the Sahaba is still going to be above. And the reason is because they got the company of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this good company elevates the status. So that is why the more good company you keep, the more your status is going to go up in the eyes of Allah. So there was a scholar by the name of Imam Ash-Shafi'i rahimahullah, and he's among the 4. He's one of those scholars who started that. There's 4 schools of thought, and one is Imam Abu Hanifa, and one is Imam Malik, and one is Imam Ahmad, and then the 4th school is Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah. And the question was, who is more elevated in rank in the eyes of Allah? Umar bin Abdul Aziz. Umar bin Abdul Aziz was not a companion. He came in the 1st century, after 100 years of the Prophet ﷺ. But he was such a pious man, and he was such a pious king, that Muslims, they had their best era, you can say, in the leadership of Umar bin Abdul Aziz. And Muawiyah radhiyallahu anhu, although he was the companion, when he was the Khalifa, then at that time there were many, many wars with non-Muslims and even within the Muslims. So it was not a time of progress. But Umar bin Abdul Aziz, although he was not a companion, his time was a time of progress. So the questioner, he asked Imam Shafi'i, who is more elevated in the eyes of Allah? The companion in whose time the Muslims were in very bad shape, or Umar bin Abdul Aziz was not a companion, but in his time that was the best era of Islam. So this was the question. Imam Shafi'i, the leading scholar of Islam, he said, you know what? The dust that went into the nostrils of the horse on which Muawiyah Razillahu Anhu used to travel, even that dust is elevated in the eyes of Allah more than Umar bin Abdul Aziz. So this is how the ranking goes. The more you spend time in the company of pious people, the more elevated your rank is in the eyes of Allah. So this is the first benefit of keeping the company of pious people. And the second and the most important benefit is that when you keep the company of pious people, it protects you from disobeying Allah. It protects you from sins. And this is how it is. And there are many, many, many examples that if you go in the company of pious people, it becomes very easy to leave sins. Sometimes just one sitting with scholars or a pious man sometimes changes your heart and you're ready to give up all the sins that you've been doing. Sometimes even one sentence, some people are so close to Allah that their one sentence changes your heart. So Zazan rahimahullah was a very big shaykh of his time, but in his youth he was very much, neglectful of the orders of Allah. And he was a person at the time of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ. So in the first century of Islam. So he had a very beautiful voice and he used to sing. And at that time there was an instrument, he used to play that instrument. And because it was good times, he used to think that this is a sin. I am disobeying Allah by doing all of this. But at the same time, he said, this is what I like. And so he was a nice man, pious man. At the same time, he used to sing and he used to play that instrument. But he used to make sure that he would not do this in front of pious people. So he used to make sure that he would not do this act of singing and playing the instrument and all that in front of pious people. Now once he was singing and he was playing his instrument, and there were people sitting listening to his music and they were enjoying and all of that, and there was nobody who was pious around, so he was very comfortable. A little later he saw that there was a very pious man just walking right next to the gathering. So he became a little disturbed. He's like, why is he walking right next to us? And this man was walking very slowly. So he became even more, concerned. So his attention was diverted towards that man. And he could not concentrate on what he was singing. And this pious man was walking so slowly that all of his attention was diverted. And finally he saw that instead of just leaving this place, this pious man just stood there. And he started saying something. He became even more concerned. He's like, maybe he's making dua against me or something like that. So he was so concerned that finally he said to all these people that today we'll finish this, our sitting. Next time when I get a chance, I'll sing to you, but today all of you can leave. So everybody left. So he got up and he went to the person who was sitting all the way at the end. And he asked him, who was this man, this pious man? He said, you don't know him? He said, no. He said, he is the companion of the Prophet ﷺ, Abdullah ibn Masud Raziyallahu Anhu. He said, what? In front of him? He became very stressed. He's like, Allahu Akbar. And he said, oh. And he was saying something. The company or the love of the pious people is our biggest investment. Why do I say this? There was a Sahabi, there was a companion who came in the company of the Prophet ﷺ, and he said, O Prophet of Allah, I think for us, this dunya is even better if Allah gives us Jannah, even then this dunya is better for us. And the Prophet ﷺ asked him, how? I mean, this is what the teaching is, right? Jannah is going to be much, much, much better than the dunya. And this companion is saying that, oh Prophet of Allah, I think for me, even if I go into Jannah, this dunya is better for me. And the Prophet ﷺ asked how. And he said, well, O Prophet of Allah, what happens in this world is every day, because I live in Medina, every day I am able to see your blessed face. And if Allah grants me Jannah, your status is going to be so ahead, and I will be somewhere else. So then in Jannah I will not be able to see you every day. So that is why I say that this dunya is better for me than Jannah. So then the Prophet ﷺ said, and this is a very popular hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, Al-mar'u ma'a man ahabba, that a person is going to be in Jannah with the one he loves. So he's going to be in Jannah with his friend, with the people that he loves. Now, even if you do not do as many good deeds as the person that you love, but you have love for him, then even if you've not done as many good deeds, you will still be with him in Jannah, right? So if you keep the company of pious people, although you don't do as many deeds as that pious person is doing, right? But just because of this love, this connection that you have with him, although you've not done as many deeds as he's done, or you've not given up as many sins that he has given up, just because of this love, this connection, and because of this hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, you will be with that person in Jannah as well. So spending time in the company of pious people is the best investment, right? It's the excellent investment. You spend time, you gain that love, that connection with pious people, even if you're not able to do as many good deeds as he has done. But the promise of the Prophet ﷺ is that you will be in Jannah with him. So this is the best investment that one can do. So now, 3 things. And we'll move on to the 4th thing. The first thing is that the benefit of good company is that you get status in the eyes of Allah, protection from sins. And the 3rd thing, very important thing, that this is an excellent investment as far as akhirah is concerned. And the 4th thing is that by being in the company of pious people, those people who love Allah, you also develop a love for Allah. And it is very simple to understand. How does this happen? People ask questions. How does this happen? And let me tell you this. My degree is in economics, and this is what I knew. Then my business is in computers, and I knew nothing about computers. Now when I sat down with all these computer engineers and all these people who teach computers, and I'm there and I'm talking about computers all the time, now I have an interest in computers. And I want to get such and such a computer. I want to get such and such a tablet. I'm talking about this thing, and I want to invest in this computer, thing, and I want to do this. Why? Why have I developed such a fondness for computer? Because I am sitting in the company of those people who are fond of these computers. So whenever you go in the company of people who are fond of certain things, you will also develop the love and the fondness for such a thing. So now we have friends from Pakistan Navy, right? And I don't know much about Navy. But if I sit with them for a long time, I will develop an understanding and a love for, naval bases and I don't know what, right? So this is what happens. So if you keep the company of people who love Allah, then you also develop a love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One last story I'll give, and then I'll end this. It's a story about people living in England, and sometimes I used to doubt. I've been telling this story to a lot of people, but still I doubted this story. So I went to Canada in July, and there were some scholars there who knew this family. So again I reconfirmed with them, tell me if this is, because I said I tell a lot of people about the story, and I want to confirm. So they confirmed the name of the person, they confirmed the location and the degrees, and all of the content of the story was reconfirmed. And it was exactly the way I mentioned it. So there was a scholar by the name of Maulana Wadi, rahimahullah. Maulana Wadi was the first person to build a madrasa in the UK. So he had a madrasa in Manchester. And he had many sons and daughters. He had about 9-10 children. And all of them were scholars. All of them were hafiz of the Quran. And all of them were scholars, alima, right? And the wife was also an alima. And they started teaching, people who lived in England, the deen and all that. And they had thousands of students. And many, all of the Muslims in England, not all of them, but a lot of them benefited from their company. So they were the pioneers of madrasas and good company in England. And people talk about them in a very, very high esteem. So now, one of their child, and his name was Maulana Usman, one of their child, he insisted that all of my brothers and sisters, they've gone to the madrasa. And his interest was in philosophy. He said, I want to learn philosophy and I want to go to college. And the father said that, the environment in college is not good and all of us are scholars and we have this madrasa in our own house, in our own compound, and you should become a scholar just like your brothers and sisters. And he said, no, I want to go to college and I want to study philosophy. And then he also had his, he had a debate with his father and he said, well, the deen of Islam doesn't stop you from studying philosophy or studying anything. So I will take care of myself and I will not, get involved in this bad company or the bad environment that is there in college, and I'll try to guard myself. So you allow me. So finally the father said, okay, fine, you can go to college. So he went to college and he studied philosophy. And he was very, very intelligent young man. So then after completing his bachelor's, his interest gained more momentum and he decided that he also wants to do a PhD in philosophy. So he applied to universities and he got into one of the very, topmost universities in the UK for a PhD in philosophy. Now again, the parents, they were like, we can't send you to college, this and that. And he said, well, I got into this college and I've got scholarship and you cannot stop me and this and that. Finally, they agreed and he went for a PhD in college. Now he spent 5 or 6 years in that university doing his PhD. And the parents, they started seeing that his amal are going down. He's not praying anymore and doesn't seem that active about amal. So in Ramadan, once they saw that he was eating during fast time, and that raised eyebrows, So you could be a person not praying, but it seems odd. And the parents were all shocked because they were not normal people. This was like the pioneers of Islam in England. So they were shocked. So the mother asked, what are you doing? How come you're eating in Ramadan? We were both feeling that you're not praying, you're not doing all these amals, you don't recite the Quran and all that. So we were quiet about all of this because you're an old boy. But now this is just out of control. How come you're not fasting? And he answered back to the parents, well, I'm not fasting because I don't believe in Islam. And when he said this, the father was shocked. And the mother was shocked. And the father and mother, they could not sleep the whole night. And they had so many sleepless nights and they could not. And the father said, why did I allow him? And all of that. And they would cry and they would be like, we cannot even tell anyone because people think that we bring people close to Islam and our own son says that I don't believe in Islam. Allahu Akbar. So this is shocking news. So there was a sheikh who used to travel to England and his name was Hafiz Ghulam Habib Rahimullah. He was a very big sheikh of Pakistan and he used to travel to England. And sometimes he would visit their madrasa in England and would stay at their house. A few days later, the sheikh arrived, and the husband and the wife, they decided that maybe we should tell this sheikh. Maybe he can do something about this. Our child, he says that he has left Islam. So the sheikh was told, and the sheikh said, okay, fine, you tell your child that every day there is a gathering. We all sit down and I do, I do a small talk. So he should come to my talk and sit with me. The days that I'm here, he should come and sit with me. And the child was also on vacation. So the father went up to him and he said that, the sheikh is here, he's in our house, and every day we have a small talk by the sheikh on, so you should come and you should sit with the sheikh. The sheikh is saying that tell him to come and sit with me. He said, well, there's nothing wrong with sitting with the Shaykh. But let me tell you this. Even if he tells me to sit with him, even if I listen to his talk, I've already decided that I'm not going to pray, I'm not going to read the Quran, I'm not going to fast, so there's no benefit in me sitting in his company. So the Maulana, he went back to the Shaykh. He said, my son is saying that there's no benefit in him sitting with you. He's not going to fast, he's not going to pray, he's not going to read the Quran, so he's not going to do any of these things, so why are you asking him to sit with him, sit with you? He said, well, I'm not asking him to do any of these things. Don't read the Quran, don't fast, don't pray, nothing. My only question or my only request is that he comes and he sits with me. So then the father went back. He said, oh, the Shaykh is saying that you don't have to do any of these things. The only thing he's requesting you is that you come and sit with him. So after convincing for a long time, he said, okay, fine. You're telling me I'll come sit with him. So the next day, the young man, this PhD in philosophy, he came and he sat next to the Shaykh. And the Shaykh gave a small lecture on Islam. Now his concept, this young man who was a PhD in philosophy, his concept about the pious people were that they might be illogical and there's no logic to what they say and they're impractical. And this was in his mind. And he was a very learned man after all, he was a PhD in philosophy. So he sat down and the Shaykh started giving a talk. So he listened to the talk very carefully. Now when he heard the talk, his thoughts about this ulama or the mashayikh being illogical changed. He thought that the talk was very good, it was very logical, it was very practical, and it was nothing that you could say which did not have academic background to it. So he enjoyed the talk. Not that he believed in any of it, but he enjoyed it as as an academic piece of talk. So he liked it. So after the talk, he said, Shaykh, it was a very good talk, I liked it. So the Shaykh said, why don't you come and sit with me tomorrow as well? He said, yes, I'm going to come tomorrow. I'm on vacation, so I'll come tomorrow as well. So the next day when the Shaykh sat down, he sat down again, and he thought that this is very beneficial. As far as gathering knowledge is concerned, he thought this was very good knowledge of Islam. So he was not opposed to the knowledge of Islam. He was just opposed to practicing Islam. So he said, fine. Now every day he would sit down and he would like the knowledge that the Shaykh is passing. And he developed a respect for the Shaykh, that he's not just like any other, scholar. He's a very learned man and he's giving very good information. So he sat down for a week, but this being in the company of the pious people for a week changed his heart. So now it was time for the Shaykh to go back to Pakistan. And before the Shaykh was about to leave the house, he said, I want to talk to you alone. And the Shaykh said, fine. And he went to the Shaykh and he said to the Shaykh, company for these few days. Now I'm a professor in Reunion. Reunion is a French island, and he's there and he teaches Islam, and hundreds of young people in Europe, they benefit from him. Hundreds and hundreds of young people and people who want to learn Islam, they're benefiting from him. So this company of the pious people, it instills the love of Allah in your heart. So the reality is, this company of the pious people is the most important thing in our life, and we should make it the most important. You spend hours and hours doing other stuff, and Islam doesn't stop you from this. But at least there should be one point in the whole week where you spend time in the company of pious people. I will stop my class here and I'll do the translation one more time. If you can go back to the ayah. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu. O those of you who believed. In tuti'u fariqan minal lazina utul kitab. If you obey a group of those people who were given the scripture, the Ahlul Kitab, yaruddukum, they would turn you back ba'da imanikum, after you've believed, kafirin, to unbelief. So we will stop here. Subhanakallahumma bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. You will get your workbooks in next class, inshallah. So those who don't have a workbook, they can sit with